They may not be in the community, but to provide some sort of empathy, you know, because it doesn't seem as though everyone is responding accordingly to these atrocities that are taking place in our communities. So that was my purpose.
What's been the reaction to it?
Well, you know, it's been very well received first of all, you got to understand, like, you know, if someone wants you to remain oppressed, you realizing that you're being oppressed is not something that they're going to welcome with open arms. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not expecting to be received. I'm not expecting a warm reception from everyone. I merely want the people who are affected the most to know that I'm riding with them, and that I care about what takes place in our communities, and I care about the lives that are being lost.
You know, a lot of people, and I'm going to bring some of the other panelists in a second, but there are some people, when they heard that T.I. was doing a town hall, there were some people who aren't necessarily fans and not familiar with your work. They were like, is this his first time? But I've known you long enough to know that you've been about the business of trying to bring information and at least respond to community needs. Can you share with our audience who may not be familiar some of the projects that you've been involved in over the past at least couple of years? I mean, I remember the Respect My Vote thing that you were doing.
Sure.
You just got back with Harry Belafonte, so there's a lot, but maybe a couple.
But first of all, the things that I do, I don't necessarily do for recognition. You know, I mean, the things that I do because I'm sincerely passionate about the things that I choose to involve myself in. And, you know, if people aren't fans, that's fine. You know, I'm not, you know, I'm not here for financial gain or, you know, for commercial success. I'm here to begin to inspire, enlighten, engage, be educated, and educate those that are side by side with me on this battlefield out here, because we're going to have to do something, because continuing to do the same thing will only yield the same results.
Real talk. Appreciate that. Miss Elaine Brown, first of all, congratulations. 50th anniversary of the Black Panther Party. I want to ask a question with this. I think most people will go, well, what was it like 50 years ago? But I think in asking that question, sometimes we forget that folks like yourselves are still on that front line freedom fighting. And can you share with us some of the work that you're currently doing that maybe people out here can, one, be inspired, or two, maybe join?
Well, is this on? One of the main things I'm involved in here in the Bay Area is the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition. And we welcome you joining them, because we need some young black people out there talking about the very issue that our brother here has brought us together around, which is the murders of black people. You know, you had everything from Yvette Henderson over here in Emeryville, and you had Mr. Hogg killed over there by the lake, and of course we go back to Oscar Grant on this side of the bay, but in San Francisco they've gone, the gang called the San Francisco PD has gone buck crazy. They can kill everybody in the world. But we're not doing anything about it. And so the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition, which represents not only Mario Woods, but also the family of Alex Nieto, shot 59 times. They thought he had a gun, he had a burrito. Then we have the case of Jessica Nelson Williams, a young sister shot in the back of the head through a car window because she was stuck in a car 5 months pregnant. We have Kenny Harding Jr., who was left to bleed on the ground after 10 shots, and of course Mario Woods' case. And we're working with the mothers, Gwen Woods and Elvira Nieto, and Kenny Harding's mother, Danica Chapman. And these people are fighting for justice, and that justice is that these police have to be arrested and charged with murder. And that is not even counting the scandal, which is not a scandal, but a sex ring going on all here in the Bay Area among San Francisco PD, Oakland PD, Richmond PD, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm working on now is trying to use, you know, my voice to be a part of rallying. I'm walking the streets. I was down there when we closed 880 about a month or so.
I saw you out there.
But we have to keep it moving, but it's your turn. But I'm also out in terms, I have a young brother that is in prison in Atlanta, 20 years now. He was 13 when he was incarcerated for a murder he did not commit, tried as an adult, did adult time since he was 14. He's in the joint right now in Jackson State Prison. And so I'm working on that case. I have a project open in the World Enterprises, which is a nonprofit, which is launching and sustaining businesses for people coming out of the joint, formerly incarcerated, as we like to say politically correctly. But you're not going to get a job, you're not going to get Section 8, you're not going to get anything, so we have to create our own money. If we could sell dope, then we could sell some other stuff. So we got an urban farm at 7th and Campbell in West Oakland. Anybody want to rest? So thank you. And so we got a lot of projects going. I'm very proud to still be alive and be able to lend my voice to you, but it's your turn, and I'm here to be a soldier in your army. Woo!
You mentioned an array of killings that just happened here in the Bay, and we saw in the video an array of killings that T.I. highlighted. Did you think with the formation of all the work that you all put in, that we would be at this? Do you think that things would have vastly improved, or did you expect this to really be where we're at right now?
Well, you know, some of us had the sort of arrogance to think that revolution in our lifetime, we thought because we suddenly discovered that there were problems in America, as though there had never been a Nat Turner and so forth and so on, and Harriet Tubman. We thought that suddenly we're on the scene now, so everything is revolution in our lifetime. And this was a little bit arrogant of us. The revolution is still a process. We're still involved in it. That's my position at this point. So I don't think that we envisioned, we actually didn't envision we would live to be as old as 73 years old as I am, but we thought we would die by 25 or 30. That was our intention, and let the blood be spilled and let the process continue. So I don't think we envisioned what would happen now, but what we realize is that the arc has not swung, the conditions are not there, but you young people have created some new conditions right now, and I think that the conditions are ripe for the resurrection of what I would call the spirit of the Panther.
And then lastly, before I bring the other folks in, for the people that are out here, we have a lot of folks that are students, a lot of activists in the audience, a lot of young people that Jaheed brought from his school and stuff like that. What sort of pitfalls would you give to them to say, you know, as you do your activism, avoid this, and what sort of things would you say that they should continue to do that has worked from your tenure of freedom fighting?
Well, I think the most important thing to do is to organize. You got to be in the right place. This cannot, you know, in the words of Gil Scott Heron, to flip that around, the revolution will not be Twitter, it won't be Facebook, it won't be hashtag. You got to get in the community and you got to lock down. So organization is important. The other thing to avoid is that whole COINTELPRO piece where we start being suspicious of each other. Oh, he went out to make a phone call. That must have been to the police. Oh, wait a minute, you're not ready to get down, so you're not a real revolutionary. Cause you to end up like the New York 21, talking about you go bomb Bloomingdale's and all this other stuff. So the real issue is to stay together, have some faith in each other, and lock down and do real work. Not do part-time work, but some real full-time work as best you can. I think we might have been a little extreme. A lot of us never had much of a life, you know, during those years. But the bottom line is, be careful and guard against the agencies of the government. The government is not here to support us. It is still out here. It will tell you that the T.I. is a thug and that you don't need to be listening to his record. But those of us who know we love T.I. just so we understand, don't get confused about, oh, well, that generation, they walk around with their pants sagging, all that stuff. These old Negroes are running around saying, we can't allow that. I'm talking about Negroes my age, okay? I'm not a Negro. Come on, what they ain't listening to, we used to listen to some really rough stuff. But anyway, the point is, we got to close that gap. We got to close all those gaps. We cannot afford it. We also have to recognize that we do have relations with other people of color who are oppressed. The Black Panther Party had a relationship with the Brown Berets, the Young Lords. We also have to know that the whole question of we were the only organization in 1970 that talked about the question of gay liberation, and people don't recognize that as a part of our struggle. People think that we were homophobic, people think a lot of things. We were not homophobic, we were not nationalists. We understood our relationship to everyone, so we got to join hands where we can and make friends where we can, because we got enough enemies. So I think the biggest thing is to lock it down and guard against being divided.
There you go. And just so you know, when we were upstairs in the green room, she was flowing Tip's words, so she was good to go. So I was like, damn, she got it all down. Jahi, I want to bring you into this. You're an educator, also one of the newest members of Public Enemy with PE 2.0, in case you don't know. Want to kind of bridge this gap. You know, you've been working in this realm for a while, both as an artist and as an educator. What have you found to be the biggest challenges for you? And what have you found to be the biggest triumph, the biggest success stories that you would like to share that people can join in on?
Well, I'm going to start with the triumph because they actually represent it right here, the Office of African American Male Achievement. If you a king in the house, make some noise one time. I need my kings to make some noise. We started in 2010, and what we wanted to do is, in the spirit of my brother Lamar, I'm going to use his term, we wanted to upset the setup. The reality is the narrative is continual, that we're victims, that black men are endangered and they're not educated. And what we made a clear decision to do is that we want to change that narrative, because we believe that every time one of us are buried, you plant seeds, and there's 1,000 other kings that's going to spring up and spring forth. We are in 22 schools in Oakland and 4 schools in San Francisco. What's up to my San Francisco Kings? I see y'all. And the whole goal is to provide education of transformation from boyhood to manhood, where we talk about the Black Panther Party in a way, not like it's some museum, like some old bear or something that's sitting up in the corner, that it's alive and well, so they can actually learn what those things are. So I think my triumph is that I get to wake up every day and I get a chance to serve 500 kings all over the city of Oakland in the school day. We're not an after-school program. We're not an intervention program. We are a part of the school day. If you are a black male and you went to Oakland schools right now, you can take a class called Revolutionary Literature. Instead of starting with Shakespeare, you can start with Langston Hughes. If you're an African American boy and you're in middle school, you can take a course called Mastering Our Cultural Identity, where we ask these questions: who are you? What is your relationship to your community? What is the relationship to your world? And we don't just talk it, we actually live it. So it's on a daily basis. So that for me, and also, in 1986, buying Public Enemy's first records, and 16 years later being, charged by Chuck D as PE 2.0 to continue the cultural legacy of Public Enemy is an honor, and I'm humbled to be able to do that. So those are I'm gonna always start with the highlights.
I wanted to ask you about the PE connection, because Chuck has spoken here a lot of times, and he's insisted that we go and see the world, and that would inform what we do here. And you've had that opportunity. So being a part of Public Enemy, what has that taught you that you bring to the table now?
It's taught me I'm a world citizen. That's really, wherever we are, no matter on planet Earth, wherever you go, you're going to find black folks, brown folks, struggling for freedom, justice, and equality. And what we found is, through hip-hop, it's such a pleasure to have T.I. here, because we know that we do one song, you can travel around the world faster than we can get to it. And we know that there's an opportunity through music, through rhythm, through rhymes, to be able to communicate the messages of an Elaine Brown. And we're doing that. Public Enemy, 30 years strong. They pioneered some places in the world we had never been, and now we have the opportunity to continue. And then you had asked about the challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges is finding the strength within ourselves. Every school year we've started, somebody's been murdered before the school year started. So we've had to deal with trying to figure out how to cope and how to be able to change that narrative and remind kings that we got them and they're in a safe place. So I think the biggest challenge is continuing to find ways and places for us to tell our narrative the way we want it to be told. Because we ain't out here, they ain't killing all of us. They're not going to kill. Every time they think that's going to happen, we are thriving all over planet Earth. And what we tell our facilitators and kings is to think from an asset-based model, that greatness is in them already. We don't have to give them greatness. They came with it. They're going to leave with it. And they can represent it all the time.
And last, you've been mentioning kings. Why do you call them kings?
We call them kings again, changing. You know what we do? Some people call each other words, right? And we cut that out. A king, when you say a king, there's an immediate sense of royalty. There's a connection to land, language, and culture. We teach our kings that the king actually was the listener of the people, and then would try to go out and serve what the people needed. Not some king sitting on the throne back, come serve me type situation. No, we are serving the community, and that's what our kings get every day.
Real talk. We appreciate that. Arisha, Color of Change has knocked down a lot of trees over the past 5 years and have really transformed a lot of political situations. Many people are at the same time are going, what's Color of Change? But it is the largest civil rights organization online right now. Talk a little bit about some of the campaigns you all are doing and some of the victories that you've had, because they've been pretty impressive over the past few years.
Thank you. So Color of Change has been around for 11 years. We were founded in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. And actually the first email sent out by our founders, Van Jones and James Rucker, who are both Bay Area folks, had the subject line, Kanye was right, after Kanye West went on the Red Cross and said that George Bush hated black people, didn't care about black people. And it went through to explain and unpack that statement for folks and ask people to join this new online organization. 11 years later, we have over 1.2 million members across the country, and we're working to channel the energy of black people's voices and our allies to win real world change. Our theory is that every single day we walk through the world, we're online and we see things happen, we're reading news stories, and for a moment we're really impassioned, we're pissed off, we're hungry to do something meaningful, and if we can find something strategic to do in that moment that actually advances the conversation or amplifies the conversation, then we're much better off. And so we've been running campaigns like that for the last 11 years. The first time I heard about Color of Change was a few years back, 7 or 8 years ago, when they were taking on Glenn Beck, who just after President Barack Obama was elected, called him the most racist president in history. Color of Change worked for several years to get hundreds of advertisers to defund the Fox News show. And at the end, even though it was still the most popular television show on Fox News, they only could get one commercial, that like Money for Gold commercial, and they were forced to cancel the show. And I just think that's the power. That's the power of strategic organizing. That's the power of black voices when really focused to hold institutions, in this case corporations, accountable to black people. We've done similar corporate accountability work. A few years ago, I'm sure folks remember, there was this wave of voter ID laws across the country, and nobody really knew where they were coming from. And we had partners point out that actually these laws are coming from this right-wing organization called ALEC, which is pairing state legislatures with corporate interests to pass bad laws, whether they're gun laws or voting laws or economic anti-worker laws. And so once we found out about this connection, we started to do some research about the corporations that funded ALEC, and there were a whole list of corporations that said they cared about black people. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Kraft, folks that come to our community continuously for money. And so we began to reach out to them. We wrote them letters, we sat down with them, we were explaining to them, what was so wrong with these discriminatory voter ID laws, how they were disenfranchising black voters, with the message that you can't come for black people's money by day and then take our votes by night. They ignored us for a while. Thank you. They ignored us for a while, and several months later into the campaign, Trayvon Martin was killed in Florida, in Sanford, Florida. And the law that kept his murderer out of jail was Stand Your Ground, which was also pushed by the same ALEC coalition and enabled by these same corporations. And so we went back and we went out publicly against them. Again, pushed hundreds of corporations to leave that corporation. They had to shut down their K Street office and had to shut down the entity that was pushing out all of these bad laws for our community. And so those are a few examples of some of our work over the past few years. Most recently, and the work that I'm most excited and passionate about is this work. We've started our own super PAC this year, and we have started a Black swing state program where we're engaging Black voters across the country with key races on the ballot and asking them to turn out to vote.
There you go. Give it up for our colored friends. You know, one of the interesting things is all of y'all are artists. Well, 3 of y'all definitely have put out records and have been signed to record labels. How many of y'all knew that Elaine Brown put out an album and was signed to a record label? So she was. Let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the things, when you were signed to Barry Gordy's label, you were saying that your music was going to be a weapon. And, you know, the Black Panthers actually had a funk band called the Lumpin'. And so I want to maybe ask all of y'all to talk a little bit about the power of your music, how you see it. Is it a weapon? Is it, or what function do you see it? But I'm going to start off with you, Elaine Brown, because of the intention that you all as Panthers had with music, flipping the lyrics, and I mean, some of your songs were pretty damn gangster.
No, not pretty damn. I actually have, believe it or not, an album from 1969 that's now on iTunes. And the album cover has somebody holding a big AK-47. So, and I had a song in there called The End of Silence, but everybody thought it was called Let's Get Guns and Be Men, because that was the refrain. So yeah, we used, everything was a tool for the struggle. Our clothing was a tool. People, when Bobby and I ran for office and we weren't wearing combat boots, everybody was like, oh, the Panthers have sold out. No, everybody, all the church people were very happy to see us wearing our little suits and everything. It was an organizing tool. And the music and the artworks of Emery Douglas, which are here, and others, the poems, the books, everything was a tool for organizing, raising consciousness. So I think the greatest thing is that when you have a voice as big in the stratosphere that T.I. is in, then you have a lot of people now who are having to think about something that maybe yesterday weren't thinking about. So while we were not saying that that was the struggle, it was a valuable and important tool to raise consciousness and organize people.
And in addition to being signed and doing that, years later, I remember you would be backstage at our summer jams and Rock the Bell concerts, sitting down and talking with artists. So what were those conversations like? And what was the point that you and other Panther members were trying to engage artists when you were doing these
Remember
things?
that?
Yeah, you can.
That's good, man.
She came to my house and was like, I'm going to get some backstage passes, and I'm going to be at these events.
Some of that weed was like so heavy in some of those places. I can't handle this, you know. I was at a Chuck D introduced me at a concert he had in San Francisco. I thought I was going to pass out. I didn't know people stood up. You know, I thought you had like a seat at the concert, and you got like your seat was 9A. You know, I got there, and people were like, no. And it was a cloud, you know. So, and I was like, wait a minute, I can't handle this. Even though I'm from the 60s and everybody did everything. But I was one of those that couldn't handle weed. But anyway. But I think that the important thing about it is that, you know, we got people like T.I. Now, I know people don't believe this, but I like a lot of rappers. As you well know, I'm a big fan of Trick Daddy. And big love the kids. You have to give voice. But I don't like the ones that claim to be messaging something that they're not. I like the people like T.I. that come out the hood, that give me like a genuine article, that got something to say for our people, that been through the struggle and that are still commenting and making us conscious. So when you can get that, so yeah, Rock the Bells. I don't remember, there was like some big names, there, but first of all, I like a lot of the rap because I thought I was a poet and I realized I wasn't a poet. I wish there'd been a rap I would write. I would like to do rap now. I can't even say the words that I would like to say because we're in polite company. Right. You know, you know me, didn't you? So, you know, I'll be listening to Lil' Kim, you know. Yes. I have to spell it out. So anyway, I don't like the weakers, you know. I like the ones like, don't like the ones that come hard. Because if you're not going to come hard, what's the point? But I think it's really important. I think it's really important that these messages are out there. And when you get a young brother like young brother like T.I., who is going to bring now a message, use his power, use his voice. And that's all we got. We don't have a lot of stuff. We don't have the power to take all of our guns. And we in the Black Panther Party, I'll just say this very quickly. People thought, oh, we're going to be doing battle with the police. Really? Well, we had plenty of guns. Believe me, we probably had more guns than we had anything else. We had some guns and some other weaponry, as Huey would say. But even if we fought, and our people did, 11 people, as you know, in 1969, up against 300 SWAT team members, and we fought for 5.5 hours, and we didn't die.
That was in L.A.
And we did not die. And we fought toe to toe. 2 sisters, 9 brothers. But we cannot fight a battle like that and win because we ain't got enough guns. I'll tell you who has guns. It's called the LAPD,
Yep.
Oakland PD,
Exactly.
San Francisco PD, State Police, Sheriff's Department, National Guard, Coast Guard, FBI, CIA, ATF, U.S. Army, Navy, Marine Corps. Let's not get it clear. This country is strapped. So if you got your little Uzi over there in Campbell Village and you think we're going to roll out of here and shout this, good luck. But what we do have is a voice.
Yes.
And that voice, and that I have to say very importantly, and I want to say this, and I thank you, and I hope I'm not going to take up too much time, but we had a brother named Bunchy Carter in the Black Panther Party that I joined, and Bunchy was a poet, and he wrote a lot of poems, and he had a one-liner, you have to pardon me, but he said, do something, nigga, if you only spit. And we come around later and we find spitting rhymes, and I said, this is what we have, we can spit. And it's kind of a double meaning of it. So you are protesting, but you've got the power of all this technology, you have the power of your voice. And so to me, I love these young rappers, not all of them, the ones I named, the ones that come strong, the ones that come hard. I'm not into the little weak stuff, I ain't gonna say what it is, because then we all go, oh, well, I like him. And we're not going there, but where we are gonna go is we have to use our voices, because our voices are probably more important than our guns.
Yep.
And when you mentioned Bunchy Carter, of course, one of the Panthers that died, but one that was organizing all those street organizations in LA, the Slausons.
5,000 members.
Yeah.
And he had a poem, and if we have time at the end, I like to say
You
it
spit
because he was
around.
like an early rapper, Can I say it?
Yeah.
I just say a piece of it, so you
Okay.
have to excuse the language.
Y'all want
The
to hear the
language
poem?
is a little rough. So he had a poem called Nigga Town. In Nigga Town, the streets are made of mud, infested with rat and bat and bug. I'm repeating the way he said it. In Nigga Town, the streets are made of brick. Ask any swinging dick that happens past, why won't he get up off his big fat funky ass? In Nigga Town one day, 4 little children kneeled to pray in Jesus' name. Boom! 4 little children gone, and Jesus never came. You say you tired of all this shit, you sucker paw son of a bitch. If you was, you'd fall your mitt. Do something, nigga, if you only spit.
Sounds like, what, 1967. There you go. Bars. T.I., let me ask you this. First, you have, you're just getting back from the Many Rivers Festival.
Yes.
Many Rivers Crossing Festival.
Yeah.
You got to build with another well-known artist, Harry Belafonte.
Yes.
Who definitely uses music as a tool.
Sure.
So one, what did you learn from him? Your conversations and your engagement with him. And what do we find on your new album as an artist, knowing that you definitely have been putting out some stuff, as of late?
For me, I think it was very important when I took on the role of a representative for the generation. It was important to go and speak to the elders and predecessors who had experienced, I can say similar times or more excruciating circumstances, and how they were able to mobilize themselves, organize themselves. Some of the strategic tactics that they used in order to push forward forms of change. And, you know, on that list was Mr. Belafonte, as well as Quincy Jones and Minister Farrakhan and Ambassador Andrew Young, and just people who I know have actually put in the work to, you know, push forward the people for generations to come. And I can't really articulate all the things that I've learned necessarily from Mr. Belafonte in public. You know what I'm saying? But I think just to simplify it, what you just said, what she said, is almost identical to what he said. Like your voice, your platform, you know, your influence. That is the power that you must use, you know, not necessarily for your agenda, but for someone who hears you and builds upon what you've extended, and, you know, and together we can, you know, it progresses on a long-term basis. You won't wake up tomorrow and see change, but eventually, over time, you know, change will come. That's one of the things I learned. I think that for me, and I'm no saint, and I'm probably not the most qualified or the most, you know, the most positive person to do this because of my history and because of my present even. So, but what I think that we as a people have to do is stop trying to dictate where you get the message from and just get the message. You know?
One of the things that I think is really important, I remember we had a Motown Day in Oakland, and Barry Gordy revealed that, you know, he had another label, a subsidiary label, where he was able to sign an Elaine Brown and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King and raise money for your organizations, and that was Black-owned. You are part of a Black-owned thing with Tidal. Can you talk about having that sort of independence? Because oftentimes we say, why don't we have our own? Why don't we have our own platform, our own radio, our own? And you have that now. Can you talk about the importance of that and what we should really be uplifting around that?
Well, I mean, for me, and the reason that I saw a worthy purpose in Tidal is because the initiative of it is to put the power of the art back into the hands of the artists. You know, back when hip hop started, it was a reflection. It was an expression that reflected the environments that the artists came from, and out of that, you know, there was just a huge culture, if you will, that generated billions, if not trillions of dollars worldwide. Now, of course, when you get rich, especially when you come out the ghetto, you ain't never had shit before. Excuse me, you ain't never had nothing before, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's intoxicating and numbing to the point where you don't necessarily notice the things that are going on around you. You know, so after hip hop has, you know, taken all of these young minorities out of their conditions, out of their environment, giving them more luxuries and riches and spoils than they could have ever imagined. By the time we all kind of got used to our luxuries or our affluence, if you will, it seemed like that was just like a huge rug snatched off from up under us, and like all of a sudden music wasn't selling anymore, and you know, the road travel, it wasn't as prosperous as it once was in hip hop. And I think that a lot of people, labels included, I truly believe that, you know, a lot of the label heads at some point in time, this is just a conspiracy, I don't know, It's just me thinking. It's just, I'm an independent thinker. And this does not reflect the thoughts and opinions of Tidal or Jay-Z or Beyonce. This is me talking. These are my thoughts. I truly believe that that was an internal meeting of all the big label heads who are mostly Europeans.
Yeah.
All Europeans.
Right.
So, kind of got together and was like, yo, these cats getting a little too strong. You got cats like Master P coming in here and tricking us, and he made more money off of him than we did. You got people like, you got people like Jay-Z who come in, and these cats, and we got to do the deals the way they say do them because they got the juice. So we got to do something to get us the juice back. Yeah. And I think that there was an initiative to kind of subdue the strength that came from the monetary value that came from hip-hop music. I think that it was just too many young black brothers being ushered into power and affluence, and that had to be neutralized somehow, some way. And you know what I'm saying? And of course, it's a new day now. We have everything from Pandora to Spotify to Apple Music and all of these things are very, very great. I appreciate Pandora for sponsoring this event. However, as an artist, as a black artist, as a person that came from the projects of the ghetto who started out with nothing, to be in a place where the head of it started out just like I did, represents just what I represent, who came from the same thing that I came from, that means a lot to me. And as a maker of music, a producer of music, I remember when I was on Atlantic Records, my last album, I just had the most difficult time trying to explain myself why I was trying to do certain things musically, or why I needed such financial support to bring my ideas to life to a person that wasn't a music person. Like now, labels are owned by mergers and acquisitions companies, people who come in and just buy a company because it's cheap for right now, and they just basically, bottom line, black and white. Okay, this is $1, these are some cents, and I'm gonna apply. There's no passion, there's no artistry, there's no real application of the true spirit of what hip hop stands for and the origins of it. And we couldn't see eye to eye, so I moved on, and luckily for myself, I found myself in a position in Tidal where that is exactly what the company is meant to represent.
Real talk, appreciate that. And one thing that I always admired is we did an interview a long time ago, and you talked to me about how you and your uncle, I think, had your own construction company.
Yeah.
And that reminded me, like you were already taking your street hustle and applying it and diversifying your money and all that. And it seems like that's kind of scaled up. But for people that are coming up, can you just maybe comment on the importance of that? Because we've seen the Master P's and others kind of take what they understood from the streets and apply it in a business setting, so they always had something to fall back on.
Sure. Okay, well, first of all, I think that everybody out there should understand this. A person who is oppressing you will not listen to you try to explain to them how it is wrong for them to be oppressing you. They do not.
Can you repeat that again one more time, just in case they didn't hear it?
Your oppressor does not want to hear how logical it is for them to not oppress you, and how unfair it seems for them to be, unfair to you. That is just not, it's not gonna happen. So stop asking, stop crying, stop, like that. It just ain't gonna, begging, stop begging. Like just understand, okay, this is how they want it to be. The If they wanted it different, they know how to make it different. Obviously, this is how they want it to be. So don't go to them with no rap. Don't go to them with no conversation about it. It's two things that that your oppressor will respect. That is the loss of life and the loss of finance. Okay? So, like she said, we ain't got enough guns to be out here going to try to go against, significant people of authority, and that ain't the way anyway. So we have to use the power that we have, which is redirecting our dollars. Our communities are the most underserved communities in this country, yet we possess the strongest buying power. As African Americans, we represent trillions of dollars a year for these corporations who choose to accept your money but not do anything to funnel those profits back into your communities, which are the most underserved communities in the nation. So that's one thing. Recognize your power. Recognize your strength. Like, you don't have to go and buy Starbucks if you don't want to. There's plenty of places to get coffee. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of places to get coffee. Like, and I take this out, like as my man Killer Mike said, if a million of us took $100 out of our bank account and went and opened up an account at a black bank, that'll be us showing that we can move $100 million. Now, if you can move $100 million now, of course you might think your little $100 ain't a lot, but if a million of us come together and move $100 to a black bank, then that black bank would then have to respect us as a group when it comes time to give loans for businesses, when it comes time to give loans for first-time home buyers. All of those things have to be respected and acknowledged, but only if you do what it takes and take the necessary steps to demand and earn that respect. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the only way anything is gonna change. Apartheid ended when there were students in Atlanta that said, we are not going to fly Delta, we are not going to drink Coca-Cola as long as these corporations still support a place that oppresses people that look like us. And that we did that for Africa. So now it's time for us to take the same steps, the same initiative for right here. If the police won't listen to us, if the politicians won't listen to us, the people that they go to get their campaign funds, when it's time for them to run for office, those corporations, if we start taking away from their bottom line, then when they go to them about campaigning and contributing to a campaign fund, then they're going to say, hey, man, we can't really give no money to you because you got these people, they won't shop with us no more. Y'all got to do something to appease them. You got to do something for them, or else I can't do nothing for you. See, that is the way. You know what I mean? That way, we ain't got to say nothing. We ain't got to ask nobody for nothing. They going to come to us. Hey, listen, what can we do for you? You see what I'm saying? Like that, those are the steps that need to be taken.
Much appreciated for that, T.I. Much appreciated. I want to bring this question to both Jahi and Arisha. First, Jahi, your reflections being with Mr. Belafonte, but also I've been with you when you've been with Chuck in Public Enemy, and one of the things that I saw and observed over the years is that, they were like, we all got to educate, that you just can't get on the mic that it's almost like the Panthers. You had to have this political education before you all got out on that stage and spit your rhymes. And if you could talk about that, and then what I wanted to dial this into you, Arisha, is that watching Color of Change, y'all have been doing an education process as well. And I remember when James and Van Ash was at my house with the Color of Change, when that started, that they were going to start targeting some of these artists to make sure that they had this talking points and information, so that when they got on the stage, that there was a body of people that were informing them so that they could speak. But I'll start with you and
No,
building on this?
absolutely, man. Just building on what T.I. was saying, you know, Public Enemy was the first rap group that had a website. So they were already on the digital divide early, 1998, 1997. A part of Chuck D and Public Enemy, what we have is we have rapstation.com, so we have our own stations. We have 8 different stations that you can get a chance to listen to hip-hop 24/7. Because Chuck realized early that, you know, that these labels was making moves even in the 80s, even when they pulled out of Def Jam. They had already saw what was happening, how they were trying to, when I talk to Speech from Arrested Development, he talks about that as well too, how in the early 90s there was a switch was flipped, and socially conscious, political music in your face, there was a targeted effort to stop that. So we've really been, you know, diligent about making sure we have our own and understand the shoulders that we stand on. And what I also thought about was, a lot of times we talk about the Black Panther Party for self-defense, we forget about the 32, 40 community programs that was going on a regular basis. A lot of times people get caught up by a particular imagery, and from the school I come from, we had to study what those programs were. We had to understand what the community aspect was. We had to understand that we had to speak to the times, and you can't even touch the microphone if you was coming with some garbage and some nonsense, because it's enough of that. It's already out there, so we don't need any more of that. So the camp that I roll with, I mean, Public Enemy, if people know who Public Enemy is, you know what they represent. And there is a protocol on how you even can touch the mic. We were in Atlanta at Many Rivers to Cross, and we was the first group to set it off, to be able to do that. And to see, doing Fight the Power and seeing 5-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and 50-year-olds saying Fight the Power really meant something to us. You know, so I think that really informs how we move.
So going back with that discipline, how do you all merge that with organizations like A Color of Change and others? Because there seems to be that cultural partnership that is not just, you know, today's leaders and activists are not just showing up. They're working very closely with the artists and all that. That's right. Well, that's what Belafonte was doing.
Well, I mean, you know, Fela Kuti said that, you know, the time for entertainment is over right now. We have to use this music as a weapon. And I think we got to be very clear on that. Our words are power. We can say some words right now that can activate people in a lot of different ways. We have to remember that. And if we don't remember that, we find ourselves actually being lulled to sleep. There's music right now, it's certain bass and certain rhythms. There's certain ways that they say things that will have you just put you to sleep. And we're in the position right now, we need wake-up music. We need conscious music. We need informative music. So we pay attention to A Color of Change, and I go write a 16 based on the campaigns that they're working on. Because I know that their campaign can go further with the 16, and their campaign is informing what we need to write about. I mean, we got enough party songs. We party hard. We enjoy ourselves, and we know how to party. But I think it's the time has come. T.I. mentioned, he said hip-hop spoke to the times when it first started. But it does that right now. What time are we in now? If you look at it right now, there's always been a soundtrack for right now. And right now, it's about freedom, justice, and equality, as it's always been. And really, if we understand that we don't have enough guns, but we got enough voices, we have enough power, we have enough access. I mean, think about our ancestors. Our ancestors were doing things with no Twitter followers. Marcus Garvey had 1 million followers, no Twitter, no Facebook, no Instagram. You know, Harriet Tubman, they had to hide during the day. They only could run.
The thing that they use the artists of today to get that information.
No question. I mean, similar to what you were saying, that the Stax Records label started the Respect label, so they could get out Jesse Jackson and other artists to be able to talk about and to move in that way. So we're doing that now, and it's important to realize that we tell our kings it's a time to work, it's a time to play, and it's a time to get serious. Right now, it's a time to get serious. We got all the party music that we ever need. If nobody ever makes another party record, we good. We got it. We good, right? But if we can continue to look at the times and continue to educate ourselves and realize that we're in an opportunity, we lifelong learners. I'm around Chuck D, Public Enemy, 30 years. That's the shoulders to stand on. But I understand the shoulders that he stood on. So it's always in a continuum. And as we connect to these movements, what we do is we add more fire. we add more fuel to the fire. And then we realize, what Elaine Brown said, that we in solidarity. We don't have, the petty differences that we have, really, the oppressor does not care about your petty differences, about you paying attention to what somebody wore, the oppressor does not care about that. The oppressor is going to oppress you, so if we can stay united, then we can move the dial, and the power of music is the way we use it.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions after this. Talk about this cultural connection. I remember when we were down in Jenna for the Jenna 6, and it was around that time that you saw Bun B from UGK that was down there, Salt and Pepper, and a lot of people came back and started doing songs like we're going to soundtrack, and we're going to use our celebrity to bring attention. And I've seen that sort of conversation consistently taking place, not always in front of the cameras, but a lot of times behind, so people at least can use their big microphones to speak. But can you talk about the intentions that you all have had over the years?
Sure. Well, a couple of things. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Color of Change is this idea of presence to power. And what we're seeing now, especially what we've seen for generations, is a lot of visibility on behalf of Black people. More and more, we're very visible in society. We're very present. But then how do we begin to actually translate that, which I feel like others have talked about, how do we actually translate that into real political power, real economic power, and real culture power? I think I agree with all that the panelists have said today, but just to extend the conversation, we've also opened an office in Hollywood to really focus on television media representations, because we can't sit here and pretend that watching Cops for 2 decades or watching Law and Order for the last 30 years hasn't impacted the way the world is viewing a lot of the policing that's going on in our communities. The way that we immediately go to blaming the victim and stigmatizing the victim. And this is happening not only on scripted television shows or reality television shows, but also within the news. And so we've been spending a lot of time the last couple of years trying to shift some of those systems, trying to call out how these hero cop narratives negatively impact us when we're actually going to seek justice. And as we think about, and one of our big initiatives this year and for the next coming years are really focusing on local district attorneys, local prosecutors who were often glamorized in the media, but beyond just not charging cops who hurt us, they're making decisions in our everyday lives that affect us forever, whether to charge you for a felony or a misdemeanor, for a dime bag of weed. These sorts of decisions that are put in their discretion have lifelong consequences for our communities and for our families. And so here is one specific place where not only does there have to be systemic policy change, but we also need to see a culture change in the way that we think about their roles in our society.
That's really talk. I appreciate that. What I want to do is I want to take a couple of questions, and the way we're going to do this, I'll come to you, we'll get a couple of questions, and then we'll bookmark it, and then we'll just go, we'll do 3 at a time. Okay, so I know some of you kings over here had a question, so I'm going to come to your kids first. Any of you all had a question before we go to the others? Go ahead, stand up. I'm doing an Oprah invitation right here, but if you all look under your seat, there's a car key. No, I'm just kidding. You got it? No? Okay. What's your name?
Rashawn Smith.
What's your question?
Did you see yourself 5 years ago doing this and everything you've done in the past in 2016?
Okay, so 5 years ago, did you see yourself doing this? Anybody got a question over here? Come on up here. Because I don't know if the mic is going to go as far. Okay.
How y'all, you got it? All right. How y'all doing, man? My name is Pac-Man. T.I., man, I followed you a lot, and I appreciate everything you're doing to, help the youth and everything. You helped me out a lot. I'm a young black man. I just opened a clothing store out here in Oakland, my first business, Threads Culture and Fashion. And I was wondering if we could get your line up in there. Look cool and...
You're trying to do business up here. All right. Just hustling. I hear that.
Hustle fan.
All right, hold on. Let me get him, and I'm going to come over here. So you want to know if he can get his clothing line. You have a question?
So my question is, so I'm a king at Mission High School. So I just kind of wanted to know two things. One, how do y'all feel? How do y'all feel about the African American Power Class? And two, what can I do to change things in society?
Okay, and let me just get one more. Come up here, sis. And then I'm gonna come over there, so y'all go on that side. Ready?
All right, so so it's not business like the other guy, but I'm an artist. I work with a group called Soul Development. With Kariga Bailey, we're at Roses and Concrete. We teach the kids. We're teaching the kids about being black, social justice, police brutality. And my thing is, we've been in the Oakland community, really working with the community, trying to get the message out. And I just want to know how, as artists, can we start pushing that same message, and who can help us to get the message out there? Because we're already in the community. We're reaching the children, we're reaching the families. How do we make that bigger and align with people like you to help, you know?
Okay, so how do we network? All right, so we had several questions. One of them was, did you see yourself 5 years from now?
5 years ago?
Yeah, anybody can hit that. Then he want to know if he can get his clothing line up in the store. And then somebody want to know about the Afro class. So 5 years from now, did you see yourself?
5 years ago.
5 years ago, did you see yourself where you're at now?
5 years ago, did I see myself where I am now? The simple answer is absolutely not. I did not. I had no idea. This is not something that I could have predetermined for myself. As far as the power clash, I think the main thing that everybody must understand is the Willie Lynch syndrome is real. You know what I'm saying? So it is a strategic, it has been strategically implemented on our particular communities for us to hate each other. Why? So we will not unite against the oppressor. For whether it's light skin, dark skin, whether it's old, young, whether it's rich, poor, whether it's red or blue, or whether it's, you know what I mean, long hair, short hair, good hair, bad hair, like whatever it is, they have systemically put it in our minds to just divide us, okay? And if you understand that we are much stronger together than we could ever be apart, then that will kind of give you enough insight to overwhelm or overpower this power clash. And also understand that the enemy is not a dumb one, you know what I mean? Like, and they don't lack resources. Therefore, strategically, they will give more to one for him to continue to lead the rest down to serve their purpose, to make him a better tool of use for them. And all of those things are in play. All of these things are in play. You got to also understand who controls the media. Who controls the information that you take in, where you go repeat and form your opinion and make your decision to do it this way or do it that way? Who controls that? You know what I mean? The information that you receive versus the information that you don't receive. Why did you receive this piece of information? Who served it to you? What is their purpose? Why do they want you to think this? Why do they want you to see this? What are they holding from you? You got to keep all these things in mind, because it all comes into play. And as far as the clothing line, to be honest with you, brother, you go. I'm gonna have to direct you to the sales department. You know what I'm saying, to see if there is something that can be done. You know, and is that all the questions?
Yeah, that's all. No, we got a couple of
There was one question.
Go ahead.
The king asked, what can he do?
Okay.
And yeah, one of the things I wanted to say is, what you can do right now, King, is pay less attention to national politics, I should say, and I want you to pay attention to your school board and your city council. One thing that you can do, King, is you can pay attention to your city council and your school board, and pay attention to your principal, because we need more black principals at our schools. You could be in a position where you could actually go to college and come back and be in a position of power, and not only would you benefit from the class that you're in, but you can create that class all across San Francisco. So I would say pay attention to local politics.
And also educate yourself. Educate yourself like what's mandatory, the mandatory minimum, if you will, for education is K through 12 and 8 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. But after that, now you have to educate yourself on the things, because the mandatory minimum of education is not there to educate you on how to be self-sufficient, how to be an independent thinker, how to be an entrepreneur. Like really, they there to educate you on how to join the workforce and be a more useful tool for them. So in order to learn the things that you need to know to empower yourself, you have to teach yourself. It's the information age. You can Google anything. You have to teach yourself. You know what I mean? But education is the key, and it don't end when we leave school, because the people who put the curriculum together for the schools that's in our neighborhood ain't necessarily in our favor anyway.
Brown, I asked you, how you saw things. Did you expect things to be the way that they are 50 years ago today? I want to flip that question and kind of ask, where do you see things going in the next 5 years?
Well, I hear even in these questions, and one of the things that I think has become a problem, I'm really amazed at what you're saying, brother, because so few people in this generation, and when I don't want to say young people because everybody under like 60 is young to me, but so the point is, in your generation, I noticed that you've embraced the sort of white man's capitalist image of yourself as an individual, and there's no sense of we.
Yes.
There's a sense of what I want to do. I got mine. People write poems about how I did this and I did that and all that other stuff. And I think that bringing this message that you have brought, coming from you, talking about what we are learning, how we can act in concert. And so I don't know that we're going to get there, because I see nothing but people speaking about themselves as individuals. What can I get for me out of this conversation? What can I get for me? But we're talking about a group here. You in Oakland, this is the Oaktown, y'all supposed to be bad. I don't know. You're talking, we're not necessarily doing much else. So here we are in Oakland, and this brother's come here to chart a conversation. I think we have an opportunity to think in terms of we. We are still talking about light skin, dark skin. We still talking about hair texture. We still talking about who don't like somebody. All this divisiveness, that the Willie Lynch syndrome, the slavery, the post-traumatic slave syndrome. So I don't know where we're going to go unless we decide to be we. Because and you have that as your message, don't you? Isn't that on your T-shirts and so forth? There has to be a sense of we. You need to be looking at your brothers and sisters in this room, not thinking about what can I get out by being in the room with T.I. What am I going to get out of this? But what are you going to do when he's gone in the Old Town? Y'all talking Old Town, this is the home of the family. Let us try to be united as a group, as a people, recognizing who the enemy is.
John,
and so I say that to say that if in the next 5 years we can do that, I see the potential here for a real movement to rise up. But it's not going to happen as long as we're thinking on this individualistic thing. And what is happening is this brother, out of just whatever, has come out of his own success. Having come out of it, he said, and I remember because I lived in Atlanta when you started. That's how old I am, well, how young he is. Everybody from the neighborhood, they loved this brother because he was really from the hood, like the real hood. You know how people be, like they got fake credentials, you know what I mean? I think it was Bowen Homes, maybe I'm wrong about that.
It was Bankhead, not necessarily.
Bankhead was saying
not far from it.
But not far from Bowen Homes. This is one of the roughest areas in America, okay? People didn't even want to go down Bankhead, you know what I'm saying? You know how some people don't want to go in certain neighborhoods. But the point is, use what you've got to unite for our people and really think that this man has come back and come full circle with all this money. And instead of acting like he can't see us, he's saying there isn't us here and I'm angry about it. And you can lose a lot. We got a lot of little moments now. We have Beyonce doing her Panther thing, right? Then we got my good friend Alicia Keys doing a lot of stuff, 23 Ways, putting her voice out there. So that's what they're doing. Now, what is your job going to be? We're on the ground. And I think for the next 5 years, that's our task, especially here in Oakland, where we always call ourselves the most progressive, the blackest, we the baddest, we the this. Let's do that together and make this next 5 years a movement-building moment. That's what I'm hoping for.
There was a question, I'm going to direct this to Yagi and Arisha. The sister was asking how she can connect and how she can build. And since Sister Brown, Lane Brown was talking about the we, maybe you can share what you are charging your kids with. Because they got to come here, but you making it a we activity.
No, absolutely. Number one, just see me afterwards. Sis, you in Oakland, Rose and Grow from Concrete, we know about that school, so just reach out to me direct. Yeah, I don't have no security folks, and just come see me. Just come direct, and let's continue to build. I think Elaine Brown is right on point about we have to figure out what is our call of action. Like when we leave here, you can leave here and say, oh, you know, that panelist, they were tight. They said some really good things, but really, our future really determines on what you do and how we can support it. You know, we brought young people here today, not as a field trip, but this is an assignment. This is an opportunity for them to, number one, see an artist that they've seen up close and personal talk about how they need to educate themselves. And they will go back, and that's their job. Their job is to report back to the other 400 kings that are not here about what is happening. And they will do an assignment on this, and we continue to work and build because we realize that if we put it into these young folks, then 5 years from now, they'll be 5 years older, and they'll be continuing to move this thing forward as we continue to try to be elders and give them the right information in the right direction.
And how can they connect with you, Arisha?
Well, you can join us at colorofchange.org and begin starting petitions. We're also going to be at Oak Stop on Sunday, texting black voters from 1 to 4. There'll be food, there'll be music, there'll be mimosas, that kind of thing.
They'll be there.
Yeah. And we're using a new technology, and we're going to reach out to 80,000 black people this Sunday.
So you're going to have shrimp and grits there too?
Yes.
Oh, man.
We do a good brunch.
All right, we have a couple more.
Excuse me, but our menu for the Black Panther 50th dinner includes shrimp and grits, just so I just throwing a little plug for the menu.
I'm going to be emceeing that thing that night, so I will be there to get that shrimp and grits.
You'll be the MC.
Okay, what's your question?
My name is Hannah, and we're here representing the BSU from SSA. So I have a question. David is our professor every Thursday, so you know. We know what it's like as a student activist, and they try to cut our College of Ethnic Studies, and we fought a hard, long battle together as a community to ensure that we would be able to ensure faculty to be hired, black faculty, and our education to be taught from our narrative. With that being said, that was just a lot of work that last year, and I know all of y'all done a lot of work to ensure that you can contribute in your way. So in terms of mental health, I feel like that's excluded from the conversation. And as like our black community, what can we do? And how do you all take care of yourselves? And like, what are your remedies? And like self-care, and what does that look like for all? Like, I'm really curious because I know y'all doing a lot of work.
Let me just say, just before you hit them, I hit a couple. They were burnt out because when they were doing hunger strikes and all that, that administration was running mind games on them, playing one group off the other, trying to divide groups by ethnicities, giving one department money and not the other. And by the time, these are all students, by the time everything was said and done, I saw folks were burnt out, and I think it's a good question on how you recuperate. And I appreciate the fight y'all did. Let me get a couple more questions. So mental health.
Before I answer this question, I'm going to tell you that my name is Silas Jackson. I'm from East Oakland. I go to Alliance Academy, and I'm in the 7th grade. And besides yourself, who's your favorite rapper?
And we'll get one more, and then we'll come back.
Yes, I've heard you speak about this before, and since we're talking about voting, a lot of people feel like if they catch a case, that they cannot no longer participate in the voting process. If you could touch on that again.
All right. So
I'm gonna do the first one.
Okay.
The first one, in terms of one of the things that we teach, we have 26 teachers that are on our payroll, African American male teachers that teach in the school district. So that could be a burnout situation. One of the things that we teach is that we try to make sure that people fill themselves up their mind, body, and spirit. Those things that you need to keep yourself whole, and you give from your overflow. See, all too often we give from our essence and then we're depleted and then we're no good to nobody. So what we do is we talk about the idea of making sure that you know, mental health. Today we had a training, 30 minutes. They had to spend time doing a personal reflection about what's going on so they could get it out. We had a brotherhood circle where they can talk about the things that they're going through. We have a Man Up conference on November 5th at Oakland High School for African American young men ages 3rd grade to 12th grade. And the theme is your health is your wealth. And during that day, they're going to do Tai Chi, yoga, strength tests, and mental health support on site. This is their Saturday. So we do those type of programs to serve the community. So because we realize that mental health, our physical health, and our spiritual health really is the tools that we truly need in order to get forward.
And in the past, when you all did that, you all had Stickman from Dead Prez. You had them running around.
Yeah, we had him one from Dead Prez, good brother. Stick from Dead Prez, and he came and did revolutionary PE, physical education. We did Muhammad Ali jumping jacks. We did Stephen Biko push-ups. So it was twofold. On the one hand, you was getting your physical, but at the same time, you was getting that education in a way that we do it outside of the school system because we realize 24/7.
Because he had you all do meditation.
That's right.
That's what I remember. Like everybody had to sit there.
Actually, in our class, and this is not a commercial, but it's just because it's also just real-time things of what we do. In our classes, we start our classes with affirmations and meditation. I mean, there's some classes, if you go to a math class, they already with microaggressions off top, just because of what you're wearing or how they feel about black folks or what they saw on the news. But in our class, you get an opportunity to reset yourself. You actually can meditate. You actually can be quiet and center yourself. You actually get affirmations from other kings. We talked about the unity piece. I am because we are. We are because I am. Let the circle be unbroken. That's what we do every day. And it's not like we're doing it like some type of shirt that you take on and take off. It's a lifestyle. And we realize that for us, that's real health.
I think somebody had a question. Give it up for me. Anybody can jump in on that thing, but he also asked, favorite artists who you always look at.
Man, my all-time favorite, the greatest of all time for me is Tupac. Let's see here. Who's also a Black Panther? It also derives from the Black Panther Party. There you go. But I mean, as far as the voting thing that the other gentleman asked, see, that is like local. That's local law. In Georgia, as a felon, which is my circumstances, because a lot of people who don't know no better, they come to my page on Instagram and speak a lot of ignorance and talk out their necks because they say you can't even vote. You're a felon. I say, well, yeah, I'm a felon. However, Georgia law states that felons can vote as long as you are not currently serving a sentence or on probation. So I'm not on probation, I'm not serving a sentence, so even though I am a felon, I can vote. Now, thank you. So, but see, that goes back to when you say you gotta get involved with your local laws and that comes with, the people who you put in position. The people who you put in position locally, they're going to govern over you and they're going to push forward the laws that they want to have pushed forward. So make sure that the people that are in position are those that can address the concerns that you have in our communities.
Elaine Brown, one of the things that's been happening over the past 4 or 5 years related to that is that incarcerated folks have been speaking for themselves. And there's been an array of prison strikes, and a lot of folks behind the bars have been pushing, which have led to some of these laws being changed. Can you speak a little bit about some of the activities that formerly incarcerated and incarcerated folks are doing now to kind of speak for themselves and push the envelope?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think a lot of times we have a lot of people out here researching as though we don't know what you know, we have to research why are there so many black people in prisons that we never heard of racism, you know. But let's examine this question. Let's examine the question of crack cocaine sentencing and powder cocaine sentencing, and we've taken all this time to do that stuff and nothing, or ban the box, and really you're still not going to get a job if you can't get a Section 8 right now if you're formerly incarcerated here in California. But I think one of the things that I was involved in 5 years ago, well, let me see, 2010, something like that, was an uprising in Georgia in December. We called it the December 9th movement. And 8 prisons were shut down by the prisoners. My boy was one of the leaders, which is why he's been in a hole for 5 years now. And they argued for nothing. I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, it wasn't like, oh, let us all out. It was like, we want some food, we want a better education, we want medical care, and so forth. But this was in the spirit, as I like to say, of George Jackson, who was the beginning of the former field marshal of the Black Panther Party that was assassinated at San Quentin Prison in 1971, who advocated that prisoners had to speak for themselves. And you've had recent hunger strikes here in California, and prisoners are attempting to gain their rights, because we all know that poor people are in prison, generally speaking. People are in prison for economic crimes or so-called crimes, knowing that crime is a political question, because you can kill somebody in Afghanistan and you can get an award for it. So killing is clearly not a crime. Anyway, the bottom line is that there are things to be done, as I mentioned, without being self-promoting, because I really hate self-promoting people, and that is that we do have a project out here on 7th and Campbell, where I have a farm. We've got 10 workers. We pay in all formerly incarcerated, 50% women, just so you know. And we have, we're paying $20 an hour, and they have created a farm and their own business called West Oakland Farms. We sell to Pecan Restaurant over here, and we sell to the Oakland Unified School District. So we are trying to create businesses, because we recognize that if we don't have our own money and our own stuff, we are not going to keep on begging. So I've told these people, the good news is, you're not going to be able to beg because nobody hears you. Ain't nobody coming to get you. You've been in prison, you're black, you've been in the hood, and you don't have any resources. Take that hustle that you had, if you don't mind the use of the word, take your hustle and flip it into something that we can do. And our job, Open and World Enterprises, is to back you up, is to give you the money to sustain that business until you can become profitable. But the idea is to be cooperative, to make your own money, but to not make money by exploiting people, and to not make money by exploiting each other. And I think we've begun a model. We got several businesses. We're going to have a tech business. We're going to have a fitness center, and we have 79 housing units, 100% affordable according to income, not area median income, that will be building on that site. So our goal is to create space for people coming out of the joint so they can find a life and figure out how to live without going back to the joint.
There you go. We're going to have to wrap up, so what I want you all to do is get your last comment that you want to leave with all these folks here. So we'll start off with you, Arisha.
If you want to find out more about what we're doing to reach out to black voters, there's a table in the back. The lovely Karina and Sonia can show you the new technology and get you signed up. And thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Jaheim, last words?
I just want to thank the community for coming out. And I also want to just really give a nice shout out to Impact Hub. This is exactly what we should be doing in our community. So, salute.
And there's nothing more to say than I'm grateful to see all these young sisters and brothers out here. I hope that you'll look at each other, hold each other's hands, hold each other up. Remember this incredible moment that we had together, and keep it moving, because that's all we can do is keep it moving.
T.I., you get the last word.
Well, thank you to all the panelists for coming here on the behalf of our initiative, and I salute and respect everything that you have done and that you are doing in the communities. And for you guys, man, for Oakland, thank you for, opening your arms and receiving me, and just welcoming me into your community and hearing what I got to say and supporting me throughout my career. And to the young people, just understand that, man, your legacy will be a reflection, not of the value of the things that you took from the earth, but the value of the things that you leave to the earth. So ask yourself daily, what will your legacy be?
It's real talk. Let's give it up for T.I., Elaine Brown, Jaheem, and Richard. Y'all can stand up for them. They were dropping a lot of knowledge tonight. Want to thank Pandora. Want to thank Color Change Pack. Want to thank Impact Hub. And we want to give it up to y'all. Thank y'all. And go Raiders. And make Colin Kaepernick do